What's up, Deep Divers? Thank you for joining me for another episode of Deep Dive Musings. I have triggered a bunch of people recently. I triggered a bunch of people because I made a post on social media about masturbating into a mirror.
This is the Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
And this was something that I had been told to do. It's actually a regular practice in the world of embodiment, sexual embodiment, tantra. I have a lot of friends who exist in that realm, and they know, and I've spoken openly about my desires to get more comfortable with sexuality, to get more of what I consider to be a healthy relationship with my sexual energy and sexual desires. And so when I speak to them about that, I often get recommendations on things that worked for them in their own journeys of this. And one of the consistent pieces of advice that has come up for the last year or so has been to masturbate into a mirror. And I did. And then I posted about it. And man, did social media blow up about this. And so that's today's topic. I'm gonna speak about that practice, the actual act that I did, and why I thought it was so important to share and the value in it. And then also a little bit about just why I think it created such a stir and such a reaction. And so before we dive into that, if you are listening to this and you get value from this podcast or any of the other ones, my ask is that you take about 30 seconds and you leave a review on iTunes. That really helps with the algorithm of getting this thing out to more people. Please subscribe on here or SoundCloud. If you're watching the video on YouTube, and for those of you who may not have known, these musings are also made into videos that go out on YouTube. So if you prefer like watching it, that's available to you. Please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Just like, let me know your thoughts. I want this to be a growing community of deep divers where we have the opportunity to turn these into actual discussions. This isn't just one way. So do that. And then I also wanted to let you know that I have a book coming out in probably by the time you hear this, we're in about a 2-week window. So towards the end of October, there's going to be a book coming out called Treat Yourself Like Someone You Love. And it is entirely about the 3 tools that I have used that have made self-love easier. They're just the ones that really I keep going back to. They work, and I break them down really simply. And the book is free. That's the key piece that I want to let you know, that at the time of me recording this, the goal is to release this book completely free for all of you. And this is not just a downloaded ebook. This is actually a physical book that you can get. You'll just pay for the shipping. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be posting that on my social media. The first people to get access will actually be my email list. So if you're not already on that, go to adamroa.com and sign up for the email list. As a bonus for signing up for that, you also get access to a webinar that I did called Everything is Frequency, where I break that concept down into understanding for you. So those are some exciting things that are on the horizon. And so I want to dive in now to today's topic, right? Let's go. Here's the thing. As someone who was raised Catholic, and there's a religious stigma that's kind of passed down in that religion around, and a lot of religions around sexuality and masturbation and sexual desires. That's one piece, right? As someone who was the victim of sexual abuse when I was a very young age, there was a belief instilled at that time, created at that time as a protection mechanism, which was it's not safe to be the object of sexual desire, right? Being the object of someone's sexual desire can lead to pain and trauma. Right. There was also another belief that was created in that moment, which was that a man's sexual desire can cause a lot of pain and trauma. And that lens is amplified by what we see in the collective. And when I say the collective, what I mean is on this planet right now, there's a vilification of male sexuality. There's absolutely some of this for female sexuality as well. But for male sexuality, as saying like men can't control themselves. Men hurt women, men hurt other people because they can't control their sexual urges. And so men's sexuality is something to be feared, and it's something that needs to be contained, and something that just causes a lot of problems. And so these belief systems that I was essentially growing up with, right? That it's sinful, it's shameful, it is uncontrollable, it causes pain, it causes damage. The world wants me to stifle it, was something that I had deeply ingrained in me, and I didn't even realize it for a really long time. It's more of a hindsight when I look back on how I acted and how I behaved, and I look at right now the things that I'm uncomfortable with the level of awareness I have about what's going on inside of myself. It's remarkable to really see how deeply this belief system was carried. I mean, it's been with me my whole life, and I've acted in that way. And so I am the kind of person where I believe that what it means to be a conscious, awakening human right now is that we're learning that we have the ability to choose consciously what our beliefs actually are that we want to hold in our system. Right? Most of the beliefs, like the ones that I just shared with you, those are created unconsciously. And most of the time they're created as a defense mechanism. They're the ego mind creating a framework for how to view reality so that it can keep us safe. It can keep us in our comfort zone, and it can try and figure this out with some level of control. And so when we have really traumatic, painful experiences, when we're raised in certain cultures or religions, what happens is that framework gets passed on to us and adopted, and that the mind just accepts it. But as we become more conscious, which is kind of the whole point of this personal development journey, is to develop a sense of understanding of the self. Why am I the way I am? And from there, take it one step further, in my opinion, which is, how do I now choose to consciously live my life? What do I now decide is what I want for me? Do I desire to have scarcity around money? Is that the belief that I want to hold? Do I desire to feel shame around my sexual urges? Do I desire to feel like I'm not safe on this planet? You know, these beliefs that I've carried at certain points. And the thing is that so many people walk through the world with these belief systems, never questioning them. Never actually thinking, why do I actually think this right now? And so that's the major difference between someone who is self-aware, someone who is expanding their consciousness, and someone who's not, is the understanding that your awareness, your consciousness is your design. Unconsciously, maybe to some extent, but once you're aware of that, it can become conscious. Because the reality around us is reflecting back to us our belief systems. It's reflecting back to us the things that we're holding on inside of ourselves. And if that's the case, then that means that we can look at the reality around us for information about what we believe. And what may be under the surface as an unconscious belief can rise to the surface because of that awareness. And once we have the awareness, we have choice, and we can choose something different. And so I decided for myself that I do not desire to hold on to any levels of shame around my sexual urges. I don't actually consciously believe that my sexual energy is wrong, or it's going to hurt people, or I'm going to do damage with it. That's not what I want to believe. It's not what I truly believe deep down, but it is something that I've been carrying. And so I decided, well, what do we do when we decide we want to change something? We change our actions. We do something different so we can get different feedback in our reality. And so I decided I'm going to do this thing that so many people have recommended to me. And these are people that I respect in this specific area. This is important. Make sure that you're taking your advice and your recommendations from people who exemplify a way of being in the area that you're working on. And they exemplify a way of being that you actually want, you actually respect. And so from people that I respected in the areas of embodied sexuality, they were saying, masturbate into a mirror. We can call it self-pleasure because a lot of people have a different feeling around that term as opposed to masturbation. And I was resistant. I resisted it for over a year. It made me uncomfortable to think about. Not easy for me to actually just say, yeah, oh, sure, I'm going to do that, because I had a lot of shame. I had a lot of feelings of like, this is just weird. I had, I just had a lot. And a lot of people, based on the response to my social media, a lot of people do at the very idea of it. But here's the thing, and this is the value of it. This is the part of me that is now like recommending it, if it resonates with any of you, to give it a try. Because what it did is it allowed me to reprogram a number of things. One, literally, I became the receiver of my own sexual energy intentionally, my own sexual desire, which meant that I was rewiring that belief that my sexual desire will cause pain. Instead, I was now embodying and experiencing my sexual desire creates pleasure, right? And that giving of that sexual desire is a pleasurable thing. It's a gift. That's part of what's being reprogrammed. Another part of the program is being the object of sexual desire is unsafe. Well, in this instance, I'm also the object of my sexual desire. And it's pleasurable, which means being the new program that can get created is being the object of sexual desire is pleasurable. Those are two new belief systems that are both being created as the receiver and as the giver that were really powerful. And then there was this valuable aspect of also putting action to something that I desired, an intention, right? When we create an intention, I want to shift this. It's important to take action. And so I was also telling my mind, we are shifting this. This is changing. And that's also an important program to run and let my mind know, because now my unconscious gets on board. It says, okay, let's do this. So it was so incredibly powerful in so many ways that I almost laughed that it had taken me so long to do it. And that's why I decided to share it, because it was so beneficial that's kind of what I do. That's why I'm sharing it now. It was so beneficial that I wanted to offer it up to people. And I got incredible amount of backlash. Actually, I think I lost like 500, 600 followers on Instagram alone. I lost another like 1,000 on Facebook. Like it was a thing. And I asked the question, why are people so triggered by this? And the responses came in a couple categories. One, the ones that you might imagine, right? It's sinful. There's shame around it. Some people actually said it's incredibly narcissistic. And then a lot of people just felt like there was a disconnect and dishonesty within people to themselves, because like almost the entire world masturbates or will masturbate or has masturbated. And yet it's like this taboo thing where even when I say it, it feels like, ooh, should I be talking about this? So on some level, there is even in me this uncomfortability with the topic. And if that's in me as someone who shares so openly, you can imagine what it must feel like for most people. And the narcissism thing is really interesting out of all of them, because that I have that poem, right, that went viral where I say, I've always thought that self-love was something to be feared. I've been taught that arrogance is bad and vanity, it's not good. And even my bracelets are telling me to act how Jesus would. So what should I do? How should I act? I'm supposed to love myself, but how do I even do that? Well, since when the idea of like loving yourself, the idea of being turned on by yourself, the idea of thinking of yourself as sexy or attractive or being worthy of your own sexual energy, the idea that that's narcissistic is fascinating. Because in my mind, at least conceptually, I'd like to think that I want to be turned on by myself. I want to find myself sexy and attractive. I want that. That's only going to allow me to move through the world feeling in my body, feeling proud of who I am, feeling just great. So I want that. And I also want to remove any shame that I carry around this. One of the comments that I got from someone says, don't you have any shame to keep these sorts of topics hidden? And I said, no. I don't want to hold on to shame in order to keep things hidden. I don't actually see that as a good thing. I see that as something that I'm actively working through and moving past. And I think that the collective holding on to shame, the idea that something that is so inherently ingrained in us, our sexuality as human beings, something that when we're born with it, young children without any shame at all grab onto their private parts and what feels good. Like they do that. That's a natural part of being human. To think that we have to be ashamed of what is natural for us is a program that is running that keeps the collective in a state of self-loathing and fear. And I believe that we get to move past that. And the number one way that I see that we can move past this is to work on our own relationships to ourselves and our own sexuality. And for me, that looks like starting to talk about it, to open up about it. So it's not something that I feel like I need to do in the dark behind closed doors. This is something that I am going to be a stand for and speak about more openly, because as I do that, I remove the idea that I need to be ashamed about it. And I become a permission slip for others to possibly see for themselves that they don't need to be ashamed about it. And I'm going to take action on it too. This is not just, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to take action, and the actions are what I talk about and share. Pleasuring myself in front of a mirror and doing that, as uncomfortable as it might be, it's still, I've only done it like 3 times, 4 times, and it's still to some degree a little uncomfortable. It's like not normalized for me, but it feels powerful. It feels good. And so I encourage all of you, if this has sparked that for you, an inquiry, an interest, try it, give it a shot. No one else is around. And pay real close attention to what thoughts pop up, what you actually feel during that process. And it doesn't have to be, by the way, pleasuring yourself. You can also just stand naked in front of a mirror and look at yourself and see what you think. Speak to yourself. Say nice things. Appreciate your body and the person that you are, because this life is a gift. It is, what is a shame would be to walk through the rest of your life not loving the person in the mirror. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for being willing to engage in a topic that so many people aren't willing to engage in. Collectively, we shift this through our courage and our bravery in order to do this. I want to remind you that always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved.